Humility. It's a word we hear often, but in our world, it's not always celebrated. We live in a culture that values power, prestige, and self-promotion. But in the Bible, humility is not just a virtue. It's the very character of Christ, and it's the path to greatness in God's kingdom. In Philippians 2, Paul writes, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others." True humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less. It's not about self-degradation, but about setting aside self-centeredness to serve others. It's a mindset that says, I don't need to be the center of attention. I don't need to be recognized. My worth comes from God, not from the praise of men. Jesus, the King of Kings, is the perfect model of humility. In Matthew 11:29, he invites us, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Jesus wasn't just humble in his actions, he was humble in his very nature. The creator of the universe, who had every right to demand the highest honor and glory, humbled himself to become a servant. In John 13, Jesus showed us the ultimate act of humility when he washed his disciples' feet, the task of the lowest servant. "If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet." Jesus, the Son of God, demonstrated that true greatness comes not in being served, but in serving others. Humility is about recognizing our need for God. In James 4:6, it says, "God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble." Humility opens our hearts to receive God's grace. It's the posture of the soul that says, I can't do this on my own. I need God. I need His strength, His wisdom, His mercy. But humility isn't just about what we say or do in church. It's lived out in our everyday moments. It's in the way we interact with those around us, whether they're strangers, family, or friends. It's about being quick to listen, slow to speak, and slower still to anger. It's about choosing patience, kindness, and forgiveness over pride and selfishness. Humility means understanding our place in God's story. We're not the main character, He is. As the psalmist says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters." Humility comes when we let go of our need to control everything and trust in God's sovereignty. It's also important to remember that humility doesn't mean weakness or passivity. It takes strength to humble yourself, to step aside and let others shine. True humility involves sacrifice, choosing the good of others over your own desires, and putting the needs of the community ahead of personal gain. In Matthew 23:12, Jesus says, "Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted." Humility leads to honor in God's kingdom. It's not the prideful who are lifted up, but the humble. In fact, the more we humble ourselves before God, the more He exalts us in His perfect time. Jesus teaches us that humility is not just a command. It's a way of life that reflects the heart of God. It transforms us from the inside out. When we humble ourselves, we align our hearts with Christ. We are then able to love others well, to serve without expecting anything in return, and to trust that God will honor our obedience in ways that far exceed anything we could ever achieve on our own. So today, ask yourself, how can I embrace humility in my life? How can I serve others, choose gentleness, and put God first in everything I do? Because when we live humbly, we reflect Christ to the world around us, and that is the most powerful witness of all.